When in hell are all you people going to wake up?
Well, listen up! There is a storm coming! Like nothing you have ever seen! And not a one of you is prepared for it!
There's no more secrets, just ignorance.
Welcome to the 401 show. Once again,
what
this
show
is
are we
the episode 13. How you doing tonight, Dave?
Good. I mean, all things considered, good.
Yeah.
We're having some technical problems, which could delay our NASA closure.
Yeah.
But I'm good. How about you?
Doing
Helen?
Good. Doing good.
Doing good, Helen? Yeah, she's toughing it out.
So, what are we all like fives on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's catch
Thanks,
up.
Tony.
Let's catch
Yeah.
up with you guys because there's, we've been on this pace where we're uncovering new information every single week.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I got to go back and remind myself because a lot of it was hard to handle. Like it took me months to get my arms around this. Even probably took a full couple of years to fully accept everything. And then you start to learn how to cope.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the information we've been showing you isn't a surprise to you guys, but maybe some of it has.
Some of it is. Some of it's new for me.
Well, what I notice is when we talk about researching, there's things that I'll research, and you and I will talk about people that we've paid attention to, and you won't have any idea about the guy I'm talking about. I won't have any idea about the guy you're talking about. And a lot of the information that you've presented to us, I've never seen that.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching the edited version where you brought in all the Armstrong, and I can't believe it's like you know the quote. You hear the quote every year, the anniversary or anything that's big or pretty much anything that happens with NASA. And then here it is. All you hear is that quote. So through the years, you never go back and watch any of those press conferences. And before the internet, you probably didn't even have the opportunity to. Because what are you going to do? Go look through micro film at CBS or the library?
Right.
You really had to be a super journalist researcher in
Right.
order to find that type of information.
That's why, I think JFK's assassination was the beginning of the end of America's innocence. I mean, that day really marks the beginning of, like, the imperial United States, the invaders, the ones that are, we're not in countries anymore to defend them. We are there to occupy and take them over. I mean, the number of nations we've bombed since World War II, it's staggering. Now, that's an offensive military operation, typically. In JFK's day, because research had to be done in the form of getting in your car and going to the library and going to the Library of Congress, requesting certain Kennedy was shot in 1963. There was a very small percentage of the population that was starting to pick up on the fact that that something was off here. Things are not adding up. Lots of credible people are saying things that absolutely conflict with the story. And it wasn't until roughly 1967, 68 when the prosecutor in New Orleans, Jim Garrison, he's the one now, he was probably the first real conspiracy theorist. He went through hell. I mean, he got attacked from all different directions.
The following time period has been made available to District Attorney Jim Garrison of New Orleans to reply to an NBC News program.
Many of the things which some of the major news agencies have been telling you are untrue. You're going to learn that although you are citizens of the United States, information concerning the cause of the death of your president has been withheld from you. That President Kennedy was not killed by a lone assassin. You will learn that there has been and continues to be a concerted effort to keep you from learning these facts, which presumes that the leaders of our federal government and the men in control of the powerful press media constitute a special elite. The truth about the assassination of the president has been concealed from you long enough. President Kennedy was assassinated by men who sought to obtain a radical change in our foreign policy, by men who were once connected with the Central Intelligence Agency. They planned the president's assassination, and they planned it well. Some of the most powerful news agencies we have in our country have worked hard to convince you. You have not been told that Lee Oswald was in the employ of United States intelligence agencies. Oswald had a higher security rating than his buddies. When Oswald was questioned by a federal agent in August of 1963, the notes of the interview were later burned. You cannot see the notes made by Commander Humes concerning the president's autopsy because he burned them too. One of the questioners of Lee Harvey Oswald during the 12-hour session burned his notes. That the secret message about Oswald from the CIA was accidentally destroyed while being thermofaxed. This spontaneous combustion, incidentally, occurred the day after the president's assassination. The Warren Commission's inquiry into the assassination started off with a completely unacceptable philosophy. One of its stated objectives was to calm the fears of the people about a conspiracy. I don't want to be calm about the assassination of John F. Kennedy. They're telling you that black is white when they tell you there is no evidence of a conspiracy. But they have lent themselves to the all-out effort to convince you that the matter's been looked into, and anyone who raises a question now is irresponsible or a troublemaker or an enemy of the people. Anyone who has done their homework knows that the single assassin theory is totally impossible. I believe that in this conflict between truth and power, and this is exactly what it is all about, that power cannot possibly smash truth out of existence. And I believe that the people of America want to know the entire truth about how their president was shot down in the streets of Dallas.
In Kennedy's day, it took about 30, it was around the time of Oliver Stone's JFK. So we're now looking at 31 years since Kennedy had been killed. And it was right around that time where more than 50% of the population now believes that it was not Lee Harvey Oswald. That was in 94. And if you go look at it today, the number's almost in the 70 to 80%. Like it's a majority. So before the internet, it took us 30, 40 years to get, wise, common knowledge about JFK. 9/11 happens. Now we have the internet. It's a thing. And it didn't take 40 years. It took about 10 years before we started to reach a critical mass with 9/11 where there was enough people now going, wait a minute, this is...
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty.
Just illuminated. From the moment of birth, all we know is the thirst. These devils trying to make the river flow in reverse. All my people on the rooftop, all my people on the ground. Did you really think I came to bring peace? I came for blood to rain on these streets, bang on these beats till we're all awake. They ain't got the balls to haul us all away. Shout it from the rooftop, God is great. All these wannabe cobras just guard of snakes. I'ma shine the light, watch them cower in shame. Got guns, but the flame will devour your brain. It's bigger than freedom, bigger than change. Politicians, citizens, sinners, and saints. Raise the vibration and the shift begins. Where you gonna go with them spaceships and things? Wake up.
I am honoring the memories of those who were lost, okay? I'm honoring my brothers by asking questions.
46% suspect or are sure that it was a controlled demolition.
Investigate 9/11. 9/11 was perpetrated by people within our own government.
In the kingdom of the cowardly lions, undoubtedly the tyrants and keepers of the sleeping giants. From the minds to the Zionists and overnight messiahs, setting fire to the fire, cause I'm preaching to the quiet kids, speaking in defiance. Read through the lines, keep your eyelids open if you're blind to the science. Can't incite riots without violence, cause Lord willing no one.
And most people think you're a nut.
To invade our neighbors, paid renegades, take aim at the natives. No hiatus from these faith crusaders, stage all out wars in the name of the creators. Is it all cause they hate us or underestimate us? Why, Lord, do you forsake the poor like racists? Agents of Satan with the faces of saviors. Bet it takes more than Green Berets with AKs to save us. Trust.
Haven't heard any compelling reason for a new investigation. Well, if the family members want one, that's all.
9/11 was not an inside job. It was an Osama bin Laden job with 19 people from Saudi Arabia. They murdered 3,000 Americans and other foreign.
There may be growing skepticism when it comes to the official story on 9/11.
All of the movement has been the other way. It's been people who believe the official story like I did and have taken the time to examine the evidence.
38% of Americans have doubts about the official account of 9/11, and 10% do not believe it at all.
I certainly am much more open-minded about it than I was.
The truth can be accessed.
And we have now broken the 50% threshold as well, where now most of this nation no longer believes 9/11 was done by...
What's the percentage? Or roughly, do you know?
Oh, I got it late. It's broken down into a lot of different... The number of people that do not believe the official story is very high. That's like in the 60-70% range. So that's very easy to not believe the official story because you can still believe that terrorists attacked us, but we just let them do it.
Right.
And they're varying degrees.
Right.
But people that think it was a complete inside job set up by powerful people within our nation, we're creeping. I mean, that is where I am. Okay. And that I would say I'm at an end of the spectrum, you know, furthest end. I'm not like an average conspiracy theorist on the spectrum. But we're probably at 30 to 40% of the population now. In 1963, they could pull this stuff off, and it would take 40 years for the population to figure out. In 2001, they pulled this stuff off. It takes a decade for the population to find out. The things they're doing now recently here, 18 years later, the population's finding out about it that afternoon. Like, you know, a Vegas shooter happens, and there's already people that understand the MO of our enemy, and they are already reporting the counter story that we're going to get on mainstream media. It's almost immediate, which is that's one of those things that was in the Bible that was predicted that in the last days knowledge would grow like crazy. I mean, it would not just of the Bible, but of all things, and travel would also increase.
Well, yeah, I agree with that too. It is that, and it seems that you can go and find what it is you want from the internet. The same way you can go figure out about Egypt. You know, those are two...
But I want to qualify something because there's this joke, and it is not an accident. But people... I remember an Allstate ad where someone was on a blind date, and it was a terrible blind date. Where'd you meet the blind date? Oh, the internet. Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
It's like they're discrediting the internet, right?
Yeah, I'm a French model.
I thought State Farm didn't have all those apps.
Where'd you hear that?
The internet.
And you believed it?
Yeah. They can't put anything on the internet that isn't true.
Where'd you hear that? The internet.
Oh, look. Here comes my date. I met him on the internet. He's a French model.
Bonjour.
That's subliminal. People don't understand it, but that message comes through on so many places that when you reference the fact that you got information off the internet, it's sometimes it's even automatically discounted.
Yeah, I know. I did it to people. And
look, you do have to be careful. There's plenty of hoaxes on the internet.
There is.
Without a doubt.
I've fallen for them too.
Yes.
Yep.
But you got to understand, it's like making fun of getting a free Porsche because there's someone left a gum wrapper in it. yeah, there is some misinformation on the internet.
Yeah.
But let me also say this. Before the internet was here, you could find misinformation at a library, too.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay, you could
sure.
go and find erroneous information. All right, somehow society has survived.
You know, it used to. I guess as a child, you think that this book is written, it must be true. Same thing with school when they're teaching you. You know, you're being programmed that what's in this book is true. And now you know that I could write that book and tell you about anything, right? About landscaping and have it completely wrong. Doesn't mean I can't publish it and put it out there.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, so look, and that's where the laws of supply and demand kick in. If 9/11 really were done by 19 guys in caves, I guarantee you, put it this way, I know personally hundreds, and I know that there are probably over 1 million, if not more, people that have rerouted their entire life just on 9/11 because they saw something wrong with 9/11. Now, in our case, at least for me, that ultimately led to the Bible. So my life was going to get rerouted anyway. And I just don't think, now maybe we could probably take a poll and some people will say I'm not a reasonable person. However, I don't think that many people can be so unreasonable to see something that's not there. To research something for so long, to find so many corners of it. I'm just saying, either I'm crazy,
Well,
along with 1 million other people, and we all saw the same mirage, which mass delusion is not a thing, by the way. That's not a real condition. It's never happened.
We're all mass
I'm sure people seen things that were wrong with Pearl Harbor, right? I've always once you realize where Hawaii's at, you're like, that had no threat to the mainland, other than California possibly. But I'm sure the whole country was riled up. You know, yet it's not going to harm you. But without internet, you had no idea the true how close Hawaii was, you know, from the mainland. When you watch it now, you're like, that's so far away. It was never a threat for a guy in Detroit, you know. But I bet you the nation was in fear.
Of course.
Yeah, well, the fear, it's very important for what Eisenhower would later call the military-industrial complex. Or was that Truman? Point is they use fear to feed that industry. We've always got to be fearful of the Russians or communism or terrorism or rogue states.
The strategy that Werner von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie.
The plans of the elite are coming out, and there is one thing they are planning to introduce more fear into humanity than anything that's ever happened is about to happen, and it would seem that it would be related to
DNA,
NASA, and what's supposedly coming from our skies. And
I'm William Cooper. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to talk about documents that I saw while I was with the Office of Naval Intelligence, specifically on the intelligence briefing team of the United States Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, who at that time was Admiral Bernard Clary. These documents outlined the coming formation of a one-world socialist government, which as one body make up the mystery schools, or the ancient mystery religion of Babylon. This plan called for the creation of an external, artificial, and I stress that word artificial, threat to this earth. The entire ufology movement, ladies and gentlemen, is a creation meant to bring that about.
I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. Well, I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us we can bring about that realization. Thank you all. God bless you all.
I talked yesterday about the creation of an artificial alien threat to this earth to facilitate the destruction of sovereign nations, the coming together as one humanity under a one world government, with all people willing to make whatever sacrifices are called upon them to make, such as giving up all your liberties and freedoms and anything else they may ask you to do, in order to oppose this external threat.
Fear makes people do... It turns people into mush. I mean, it can. If you're...
Sure.
Because when I started waking up, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, everything's going to go down in 3 weeks. And here it is like 8 years later, and now you're starting to realize, okay, you know, this could easily go past our lifetime.
Sure.
I mean, it may be something that won't happen, but that does not change anything about my beliefs on heaven and hell and the real history of Earth. But there is this overcorrection, like when you first learn this stuff, and this is when you are least emotionally in a good spot to be talking about it. It's when you know the least amount of information. You've seen enough to be certain of some things, and this is where, don't make my mistake, find someone that you can learn this with, zip it up until you get your arms around it, because you say a few things that sound scary, and you're going to shut them down. Not just their friendship, but even their looking into it. It's because this is overwhelming. I mean, it's so overwhelming. I don't know if this is true. It's a guess. But I'm going to guess there are people that have killed themselves over the discovery of this. Because it's so disturbing. And if you don't realize what the solution is, i.e. God, I could see how you would view life as completely hopeless.
Yes. I mean, it takes you down so many other rabbit holes that you are, for me, that's how it was when I started researching all of this and waking up to all of it.
When did you start researching this stuff?
Probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
So have you seen anything on here? When what got you started? Like, what was the impetus?
I just think I got to that point in my life where I knew something wasn't right with what was going on in the world. I could totally feel the spiritual warfare going on. A lot of spiritual attacks, psychic attacks.
Is this the
just
story?
A lot of personal things that happened in my life, and then seeing it outside of the box also with other people in my life and what they were going through, with my family, my friends, I just saw how it was affecting everybody around me and how people were waking up to, the corruption and everything going on. And
is this when
the majority of the people that I do talk to and resonate with, they understand what's going on, and that there's massive spiritual warfare going on, and You know, we are waking up to something, and there's a lot of things that come to mind. So I would
When you
really have
leave
to-
a show, do you have a pit in your stomach from the things we talk about, or are you able to digest them all right?
I can digest it all right, because I think I have been to that point where I've had that pit in my stomach, and this was probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I know what that feels like. Like, oh my God, what is going on? I didn't want to leave my home. You know, and it was almost to the point where I had the social anxiety. Well, I do have social anxiety, but you know, that absolutely started coming into play where I didn't want to leave, and I didn't know what was gonna, you know, what was happening next. I mean, you really have to look at everything outside of what's going on, and it's on a whole bigger picture that most people will realize. I guess I'm having a hard time wording it, but.
No, it's so overwhelming.
It is.
It's hard
I
to
don't
sometimes.
get that. I mean, sometimes I get that feeling, but it's not because of this. It's because I have been able to digest this information to the point where I know I'll be okay if I keep researching and, you know, learning, and it's not going to affect me that way anymore. But I have been at that point. Yes.
What about you? Have you seen anything that was really disturbing, or are you on? Because you reach a point where you're just desensitized. I know I'm there. And that's why I'm asking this, because
well,
I don't feel it anymore.
I leave out of here feeling good because I know that at some point I'm going to reach the guy, I'm going to reach me. You know, sometimes it takes a different type of a host or a person that's presenting the information to reach someone who's on the same level.
Right.
And I like the fact that I'm learning something here every week. And a lot of the things that you're talking about I didn't know. You know, and I like the way that you're linking them to how you see it in the Bible, because those things I don't see, right? I have a hard enough time just knowing what the passages are, let alone to try to put something cryptic into it, or to be able to, I don't mean cryptic, to be able to find these parallels in the Bible and how, you know, how comfortable you are with that truth. Right, you've now seen it for yourself. That's how it was for me with waking up. And then for a while, dude, I was talking to people about chemtrails or fluoride. You know, where we have talked about that in prior episodes. And then one of the episodes, Dave, you said, "Well, none of this other stuff matters if your relationship isn't right." You know, like it doesn't matter if you're getting lead and flint, or, you know, essentially these type of tragedies happen to people all over the globe. But when you're locked in faith, things are going to be all right, even though right now it's horrible. You know, and I think if you have that type of relationship, yes, your anxieties start to fall away because you're just arming yourself with knowledge at that point, right? When I go into YouTube, I know what I'm going for now, right? If I'm going to get trapped in that, because sometimes I'll go right on by it. But for me, it was really economics that made me wake up, because I essentially, not that I didn't party too much or do some wrong things, but I've always worked. I've been working since 13 years old, you know, so when I couldn't pay my bills, yet I was doing everything I was supposed to do, is when it really started looking like, what the hell's going on?
Ditto, Tony.
Yeah.
Ditto.
What's going on? That's really what woke
going
me
to
up.
school,
It's like, okay.
trying to make, you know, it was just one thing after another. It was like, how am I working 2 to 3 jobs, going to school, and I'm still...
Sid had a really good,
absolutely.
she had a good analogy a few weeks ago. It's almost like our society is playing musical chairs. Like, by design, like every year there's a couple more percentage points of the population that are in the
falling under.
We were talking about links to the Bible. You know, that didn't come lightly.
Right.
And I was going to show you because, so like I'll take a passage that for some reason gets lit up in me. So I'm looking at the book of Daniel, writing notes and going back, and it's amazing. Questions I have, I'll go back a year later. They have been answered along the way. We've gone into books that aren't in the Bible, Enoch, the Book of Giants. I am a fan of ancient writings. I actually do. You know me. I think prior generations actually knew the world more accurately than we do now.
Well, just the quote book that you guys created, you know, that's one of those things that I would never interest me to go and gather all these quotes to prove a point, right? That all these guys through time have been saying it. Whether you believe it or not, I'm still trying to wake you up, and I'm going to show you in this fashion as well. That's the idea, right? or were just quotes that you liked personally?
No, these were the quotes. So something happened in 2011 when I started looking into 9/11, and I didn't just look into it. For some reason, it was like an obsession, all right? I felt the need to have to download and save video. And I started, I've got a library of video, and I'm so glad I did, because a lot of the things that I reference just on the fly are things that I have seen before. So I'm referencing something I know exists. With the routine we're getting into here now, so we're recording tonight, and then over the next 6 days, a lot of the things that we brought up, the easiest place to go look for them is on YouTube.
Sure.
And there are times where I cannot find it. It's like it's gone. But then I go looking for it in my personal files, buried in my computer archives.
Yeah.
And it'll be there, so we have access to that. That's just kind of strange. But one of the obsessions I had along the way were these astonishing quotes. I just wanted them for myself. I just started keeping a database of them. And by the time we got to around 300-400, I'm like, this is a book. And I like quotes, and I like things you can read, frankly, like in a bathroom. At a minute, like we were just talking before the show about the attention span of humans, because it's
short
and shrinking.
Yes.
I mean, Jimmy's talking about, 5-minute documentaries, and, Vine almost made it with 7-second videos, 6-second, whatever.
Well, some of those guys are very, very influential and profitable because of that.
Right.
To shoot the little
There's something
segues.
going on with humanity where our attention spans are decreasing, whether it's just social or it's something that's perhaps also genetic too. Who knows? But that is the reality of our world. And this is where the quotes thing, I know a lot of people that discovered all of this because something stuck out in some way, and they went looking into it. So I actually pictured a book literally that would sit in someone's bathroom, the kind you can just open up to any page. You don't have to be following the story. You don't need to be emotionally invested.
Just great quotes from people through history.
You just open it up because, when I'm in the bathroom, I'll read the nutrients on the back of a shampoo bottle. I'll read whatever you put in front of me. These things are so fascinating. All it takes is one to just light you.
Yes.
And this is what happened with my friend. Why I asked you about the feeling a pit in your stomach, uncomfortable. Because I forgot I used to have it, and I forgot what it's like. I'm desensitized to it. But I've got this friend in Chicago. He's been a friend for a long time. A few years ago, he knows we made the movie, and we're doing this show, and I'm in a fantasy football league with this guy and a few other people. And you know me at this point. I wear this stuff. I wear it badge of honor. Yes, I am a conspiracy theorist, whatever term you want to give it. I analyze
you're
information,
good with it. Yeah.
whatever. This has happened with a few of them, and the best example got some closure a few weeks ago. So I'm not going to mention his name, but this buddy of mine a few years ago reached out, and he had just seen a little presentation we put together, like a very detailed one. I don't think you guys have seen this, on how the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank, how it works and how it really owns America and owns us.
Oh yeah.
And he called me up. This maybe a year and a half ago, and he's like, Hooper, I'm pissed. I want to get him. And he's like, what? How do we do it? And at this point, I'm like, look, man, the only thing these people worship Lucifer. The only thing we can do is pray. And he's like, oh, come on, dude, wrong. You actually think this has something to do with the Bible? I'm like, that's where it led me. Yeah. What can I say? A year and a half later, up through last week, we've been talking more. And he sends me a message, and now he's actually going, dude, I've been watching this show, the 401 show. And he's like, you're starting to put this together. Like, I'm starting to get this now. And he's starting to read the Bible.
Doors are opening.
And he's starting to talk about Jesus Christ and God and getting saved, okay?
Yeah.
And he was then having his family watch the show. But his mom had to turn it off because it was so upsetting.
Yep.
Now, to me, that actually would be a credible thing, because if what we're presenting is unbelievable, and your gut is telling you there's nothing here, you're not going to get upset. But
yeah,
if
if it's just entertainment.
But if
you're paying attention.
But if you believe what you're seeing is real, you will get upset. But eventually, when that's cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
That will die down if you try to work it down. And then you can go handle this information. But it's like that. It's like getting burned when you first. It's scary.
Well, and as Alex Jones has always said, write it down. When you hear something on the show or you see something on one of our episodes, write it down and go research it for yourself.
Right.
Just start looking into it.
Yeah, I like to say that for all of our shows, and I'll say this to you guys. Do not trust us. Not that we're not trustworthy,
Right.
but
We're students.
Do your own research.
there's a
yes.
lot of
We're all
research here.
learning.
You know, we don't have fact-checking departments like CNN. But the funny thing is we get a lot more right than CNN
about to
does.
say, yeah.
We are actually held to an even higher standard than mainstream media. Because if there's a mistake in our show, oh my gosh, do we hear about it?
Sure.
Whereas CNN they can say whatever and
Change
no,
subject.
No big deal. So there are different ways we present the theme of the show. Like we paint dots every week. Another form is that we're presenting a case to a jury.
Right.
You know, and we're in the middle of this trial where we're trying this book. It's on trial right now in a sense. Like, could this thing really be true? Another theme of the show is embodied in the parable of the blind men. Do you guys know this parable?
I've heard it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
I've heard it too.
All right, so just a recap for our listeners, because this is the vision you need to adopt in order to see the forest instead of the trees. So the exact origin of this parable is unknown. It's of Eastern origin, Persia, 1000 AD, give or take, whatever. That's irrelevant. And it's got many different forms. So I'm just going to give you the idea. It might not be the one you're going to find on the internet, but it'll be close enough. And the parable goes like this. There was this village of blind men. Everyone there was blind. And on this particular morning, the main gates to the city were blocked. And so there's a hubbub going on in the city, and the wise elder of the city sends his top 6 guys. Now, they're all blind, but he sends his top 6 guys to go investigate what this thing is. And they're all there. They're feeling around. They do their thing. They come back to the wise man, and they start giving their reports of what they're seeing. And one guy starts off, and he's like, we're under attack. These guys have swords. They've got stabbing weapons, and they're getting prepared to invade our town. And another guy's like, I didn't get that at all. I think what happened is some large trees sprouted and grew by the entrance of our village, and there's no attack. And then another guy pipes in. He's like, actually, I disagree with both of you guys. We might be under attack, but it's going to be a siege. They're going to just block us in here because that's a siege wall. And then the fourth guy piped in. He's like, what are you guys talking about? Because all we saw there was a giant python snake just walking by. There is no reason to be up in arms. These guys start arguing amongst themselves over what it is they saw. Okay? Mm-hmm. And then the wise old man, the town elder, starts chuckling, and the room goes quiet. And he's like, do you guys know what you're looking at? And obviously they didn't. And he's like, you got to pool all of your information together because you're all right. I mean, yes, the thing that you're looking at is an elephant. Mm-hmm. And the tusks are the stabbing weapons. And his big body is what you thought was a siege wall. And his trunk, and you know, you could go on with, there are some guys that know 9/11 real well. There's some guys that are really experts at, like Sid, with water and fluoride and poisons. The owner of this station's an expert at vaccinations. Mm-hmm. And they all see an evil conspiracy when they look at it for themselves. And they're certain it's there. They're certain of it. And what they're looking at is so horrible and so ugly that they can't imagine that this could ever really be repeating itself throughout in another part of society. So after I was now a 9/11 believer, and I'd go to a website that talked about NASA and aliens along with 9/11, I used to get pissed off. I'm like, you know what? You're discrediting this because 9/11 is real. I mean, that's a real conspiracy. But then, my brainwashing kicks in for anything beyond 9/11 still, meaning, in my early days, I'm like, oh, I've just discovered the biggest conspiracy in mankind.
Yeah, I got.
By the time you're done, you realize, oh, it wasn't a small one, but it wasn't that big.
Right.
Right.
So the parable of the blind man is at work. You've got to have that attitude
to go out
and
and
back
get all
out
the
because
information.
J. Edgar Hoover, I mean, he's the head of the FBI for like 50 years. All right, this guy is looking down at the whole United States from a very high ivory tower for a very long time. He has a quote that made the book that a conspiracy, it was along the lines of a conspiracy has existed since the days of Jesus Christ that is so big the common man, the common person can't even fathom that it exists. And this is one of the ways they hide in plain sight. It's incredible.
That's what a lot of the symbolism and things we were talking about before, is that they're right out there. They're logos of companies. They'll tell you what they're doing a lot of times. And it may not be, it may be subtle the way they express it, but there's also, and I've also heard this too, that either it's boastful, that they want to tell you what they're doing, right? So like there's nothing you can do about it. And the other is it's kind of like a natural law thing that you like.
So you guys haven't lost any sleep then over this?
Not lately.
Any other thoughts? Any things you want to mention?
Well, that's wrong because no. When I look at it as a whole, I guess yes. I think everything comes together as a whole. So, but as far as researching this, not like I used to in the beginning when I started going down the rabbit holes. That's what I'm saying. I haven't. I'm not at that point where I'm doing it all night and not focusing on my other, life events. So.
Well, there was a time, Dave, where when people would be like, "Hey, Tony, you're in a conspiracy, blah blah blah, whatever it would be," I would love to have that conversation. Like, "Oh yeah, did you know about? Did you know about? Did you know about?" Right? Now, it's not so much. Like I love doing the show. I love learning. Like I don't feel my personal quest to wake you up, which is what I felt before. Like, oh, you don't know this? Because I think when you start doing that to people, they feel like you're trying to be smarter than them. So they tune you out because a lot of times
you do, and you can sound really arrogant too.
Yes,
and cocky, and it
turns people off.
It can cause a lot of problems.
It'd be like you bringing up, did you know that they found Muhammad Atta's license? And I'd be like, no. And you're like, you didn't know that?
And
right? That's the way you gotta make sure you talk to people.
I used to do that too.
Right,
yeah,
right.
like you don't know that happened. Like don't treat him like an idiot because you turn him away.
It started with the movie, and then I get a lot of release just from these shows. Like it's very therapeutic. But in my personal life, I never bring it up.
Yeah,
not anymore. I used to want to engage the conversation constantly.
No, I'm with you. You don't feel like you need to. I'll have people very randomly, like you're saying, Dave, and this is the good part about doing it, is that guy remembered you from years ago. And I've had that happen as well. Like, man, you were trying to tell me, but I just wasn't ready to hear you.
Yeah, that's happened a lot. I've had a lot of people. I had another guy circle back today in a comment in one of our shows, in one of our chat rooms, saying that, he had seen that movie, our movie, a few years back, and now he's like fully awake, and he found this show, and he's like, oh my God, that's exactly where I am now too. So,
because sometimes it takes you that. Because I was doing the same token with, long-term storage foods, guns, ammo. We talked about that before.
Right. It was a very physical preparation at first. Now it's all spiritual. For me.
Yeah. Where you had said that, that hey, I was doing those things. Well, I did too because I looked at it as insurance. If something happens, man,
I'd still get the guns because.
Well, once you have those things, once you have yourself a few months of, and in multiple spots, I've done all of this prep idea. You know, and once you have those things in place, you
have them buried, like
you relax a
GPS
little bit.
coordinates.
Yeah, or
you want to share them?
I have a lot of friends.
All right,
friends of friends with friends. You know, it really is about gaining your energy back. For me, at 45, I was having trouble, you know, getting through the day. And I was pounding down a lot of coffee, and a change for me in a lifestyle that made more sense. Normal discomforts, you know, tend to go away, and you don't have as much problems.
When you say, what do you mean normal discomforts?
Well, for me, I would have, say, like normal, lower back, or, you know, climbing stairs, getting up in the middle of the night which is, you know, for guys, tends to happen when you get in your 40s, where you have to go to the bathroom through the night. None of those things happen anymore, you know. So it's more of a change, and it's just premium grade nutrition. The cool thing is it just kind of absorbs through the day, or as your body needs it.
All right, so that's TonySchwartz.Lavelle.com.
Hit me up, and I can help you with deals from time to time.
Sweet.
If he's in the right mood.
That's right, and I'm usually
not all the time, but from time to time.
Oh, you're wondering about the positivity. Well, a lot of that comes from feeling good, you know.
Yes.
Some weeks we get started, we look at a passage out of the Bible or something out of history, and there's just a little connection. It just sort of hit home for me. I'm going to tie two passages together that were written almost 1,000 years apart. All right? And they're talking about something that's happening today. So Daniel was written somewhere around 550 BC. He started from being a little kid as a prophet to the kings of Babylon, and he outlived 3 of their regimes. And God was very clear with him and gave him a ton of visions. He's probably one of the most significant prophet. He's certainly one of the most, if not the most, significant prophet in the entire Bible. If you get to the point where you believe that that's a true book, and it is in fact predicting the future before it happens, get to know Daniel's 70th week. You familiar with that term?
I'm not.
No.
The 70th week is the last 7 years of humanity. Everything he talked about is lining up. I mean, everything.
70th week or 70th generation?
His 70th week.
Okay.
So Daniel predicted that there were going to be 70 weeks of years left with an unknown interval. He then explains what happens for the next 69 weeks, which takes us up to Jesus Christ coming to earth. So he's writing this 600 years before the Messiah shows up, and he's like, here's what's going to happen in the next 600 years. And he gets all of it right. All of it, to very precise details. And we have now since discovered that this was, in fact, in print by 500 BC. A lot of pagan scholars, especially out of the universities, that can't possibly believe there is a God. So everything they think about begins with an assumption that
it's fake,
that it looks as if it's not correct. So their argument was that, well, the book of Daniel predicted the future so precisely that it could not have been written in 600 BC. It had to have actually been written much later, and it was looking back on history, because no way could they have gotten that right. But you won't see this on the news. You gotta know what you're looking for. But we've now pinned it where we know for a fact this was in writing. So I'm gonna read you 2 passages. One was written 2,600 years ago. All right? Now, this might have been written by Daniel's hand, but this is God's words. Daniel 7:23 reads like this. Thus he said, as for the 4th beast, there shall be a 4th kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the kingdoms, and it shall devour the whole earth and trample it down and break it to pieces. Now, beast, a 4th beast. By now, we already know that a beast is a system, a governmental system. It can also be an individual person, because the Antichrist, the individual of the Antichrist, is also known as a beast. But a beast is also a system. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand the context. All right, so Daniel in 600 BC says, now the 4th beast. Now remember, he's predicted that he predicts 3 of them. He's like, here come the Persians, then come the Greeks, then will come the Romans, then the Romans are going to go quiet, and what's going to come out in the last days after Israel's regathered, that also happened. Actually, he said they'd be regathered twice, which happened because they were in Babylon, they were sent back to Israel, they screwed up again. Now they're dispersed for 2,000 years, and they will now be they were regathered in 1948 for the last time. Not in the spirit, meaning they're not gathered together under like God's anointing. What's going on in the Gaza Strip is not, I don't think, is anything that makes God happy. Okay, so he predicts the first three beasts. And the fourth one, it's something the earth has never seen. And it's something that's going to, it's the whole earth. That it's, this is not a kingdom that advances by invading its neighbor and then expanding and then invading those neighbors and expanding. This is not a territorial type of kingdom. It's as if this kingdom is going to be everywhere, all-encompassing. This is basically the New World Order written about 2,600 years ago. An entire world system. Okay, now let's flash forward in the Bible. We're going to flash forward about 600 years. Book of Revelation. Jesus appears to this guy, John. They're going to reference a beast here. And it's the same exact beast that Daniel was referencing. Remember I said the way God writes is he will have different people in different languages and different epochs writing about the same event. Parable of the blind men. They're writing about the same event from different angles. Now, a lot of like rookies, or if people that are just looking to dismiss this book will say, oh, there are inconsistencies in the book. Because this one witness report said there were two women at Jesus' tomb, and this eyewitness report said there was one woman at the tomb. They don't conflict with each other. It's like a witness statement.
Right.
I saw two guys running out of a bank with guns. A witness from another, standing in a different location, saw four guys running out of the bank with guns. Is one of them a liar? No. It just means
point
that.
Of view.
So,
or timing.
The Bible is the parable of the blind men. He's showing us the spiritual world from many, many different angles. It's another reason Revelation's the last book in the Bible, and it's written in code. And it's the only book that actually promises you get like a blessing in heaven if you read it. And the only reason I can think of that is because in order for you to understand the book of Revelation, you have to have read everything else. Because all the codes, what's a beast, when something comes out of the sea, what does that mean? Because I used to think that's out of a body of water. Well, no. You go back and look at the original Greek word, and you find out they use the exact same word here. It means out of the population of people. So Revelation 13, 16 to 18 reads like this. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in the right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom.
I had a friend, Nick Rockefeller, who was one of the Rockefeller family, and we became friends. We started talking about things, and one of the things that we used to talk about is the goal to create a one-world government run by the bankers, where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. And this is giving me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food.
And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Okay? Now we can see the 666 all over the place. We see it in our media. We see it in our sciences. We see it at Disney. The system, the system's not that hard to find once you know what you're looking for. These areas right here that are on this elite control grid, like I said, the Illuminati are not going to own plumbing supply store chain, but they will have their people in at the water department and the FDA and the EPA.
Or the lead corporation.
Humanity is essentially controlled through these, I think, what do we got here? 12 institutions. So if from my perspective, I'm starting to see this beast system materialize. You know, they're talking about 2,000 years ago, there's going to be some sort of a device that is put on us in some way that's going to keep us from buying or selling, which, I mean, that's a mystery for 1,950 years until we hit this century. Now all of a sudden, there's people actually doing it. You know, the first wave, they're doing it willfully.
Yes, they are doing it willfully.
I'm sorry, man.
Yep.
And then you realize
it's exactly what everybody's always ingrained, that it would be a piece of rice size chip in your hand.
Look, and we still don't know if it's a chip. It still could be I have a feeling it's going to mess with our DNA because God is going to allow this to happen because in a way, God's got this problem, all right? So we fall when Adam and Eve go down. But God then comes back with a promise. Essentially, the promise is as long as, you come to believe before you die, you're in. You'll be saved. I'm not necessarily one of those once saved, always saved, but we'll go back to that later on another show. So he's got a problem because at some point, we got to cut the line off. It's sort of like the people that were trying to get out of Saigon in the last days of Vietnam. At some point, they have to shut the gate, and someone's on the outside and someone's on the inside. Now, God cannot break a promise. He cannot be untruthful. There is no darkness in him. That's why I don't think he can appear to us, because there is darkness in us, and he'll extinguish it, i.e. kill us. I think that's what being in his presence would do to us. So...
man, I never thought of that.
Because he's made of light.
Full transformation.
Total light. And so if you put something that's brighter than the sun in this room, because every man that runs into God or an angel, same thing. First of all, it's not a pleasant experience ever. So if you have a spiritual experience that's pleasant, you can almost guarantee that is demonic. Because the common characteristic throughout all these scriptures, where if you have something like that, every time someone from heaven showed up, it scared the shit out of people. Like they would break down. So you'll know the difference. And the light is so bright, they were blinded, some temporarily, some permanently. So if there's something as bright as the sun in here, there will be no shadow. Period. The luminosity is just, there will be no shadow.
Right.
Meaning there will be no darkness in here. Mm-hmm. So if there's a shadow, if a shadow constitutes something that makes you up and it's about to disappear, it could end your...
Yeah, fully enlighten your whole body.
Don't understand. There are 3 parts to, your mind, body, and soul.
Yes,
kind of like the Trinity. I don't know how they all work together. But the point is this is a connected messaging system that is telling a thematic story all throughout history.
Not sure that I agree with you, David, on those every spiritual experiences should be, or you said is considered
demonic.
Negative or denominational.
Well, I wouldn't. It's every passage I've ever read in here. This is subjective. So far, every time I have read a passage of where a spirit from heaven has materialized, it scares the bloody hell out of whoever it is. I mean, all of the prophets that were first, they all ran. They all broke down. They all freaked out and felt it was the scariest thing in their life. Whereas the familiar spirits, they feel good. They don't want, as long as you are on your way to their kingdom, you're going to have a nice, smooth ride.
Okay.
You
I
start
can
doing
see
things
that.
like showing up on shows like this and being exposed to this information. Because even just saying the name Jesus, it's an agitating name. And if it used to agitate me, because I used to have dark spirits all over me. And I could feel it. There was like a perceptible emotional reaction. Which goes back to those quotes from last week where he predicts he's going to be hated by people that don't follow him. What a polarizing guy, which I now totally get. How can you predict that your name will have that impact on people? So we are dealing with a beast system. At the end of the day, all of the power, all of the structures that the Illuminati or that evil does business under are shaped like a pyramid. It's shaped like our military. It's shaped like the actual buildings that we see dotting every continent. And remember, Satan's a counterfeiter. That means things that you see his kingdom doing, he got it from heaven. Now, there's a passage in Revelation that says when the new Jerusalem comes down, it's going to be 12,000 furlongs by 12,000 furlongs. Okay? By 12,000 furlongs. So everyone assumes
12 by 12.
So everyone assumes we're dealing with a cube. But there's another structure that can meet those requirements. It's not a cube, and it's a pyramid. So I suspect that God's kingdom actually is one of pyramids, and Satan has counterfeited it. Because every breakdown you find, and I don't care if it's the image on the back of our dollar bill with the all-seeing eye and the pyramid underneath, or whether it's just if it's just how the intelligence agencies work, it's the same concept. They own the top stone.
Yep.
The top one. Because from there you can control everything beneath you.
Yep.
And that is how the Illuminati, that is how they do it.
Like a broken down
it is
organization or mafia.
So look, these guys, in my opinion, they are a kingdom. And they are now essentially going public in the world. And it's hard to not see it unless you're sticking your head in the sand. These graphics that I didn't make these are done by other people. And that, one of the nice things is you come to some of these conclusions that are just nowhere near what we were taught for our whole life. And at least I did. I wondered if I was crazy.
Well, you get
I
angry.
still do sometimes. But when you find that someone else completely apart from you, different set of eyes, looking at different set of information, can come to the exact same conclusion. And actually there's millions, if not tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions. People are starting to get this. That, for me, is a sign that this is spiritual.
When you see it in the pop stars and you see it at Super Bowl and you see it, because a lot of people watch those shows and they don't see any of it, Dave, right? But now that I'm awake a little bit, I do look for it and I do see it. How is that parallel? How is it that we have so many that completely watch the Super Bowl and not see any of that? And then guys that are awake because of the symbolism.
How's it going, guys? White Rabbit here. The 2016 halftime show is upon us. And just as is seen in seemingly every passing year, our society is again primed and ready to ingest the propagandized indoctrination showcasing the beliefs and ideologies held by the satanic ruling elite, notoriously known as the Illuminati. You see, a worldwide televised event, such as the Super Bowl, which is viewed by hundreds of millions of people, is a wonderful opportunity for the elite to infuse subtle yet significant indoctrination into the minds of the viewers who never bother to question the talking pictures flickering on their screen. The Illuminati love showing off their Babylonian mysticism and esoteric symbolism through satanic rituals. and the vast majority of people never even realize what it is that they're watching. But upon realizing that Satan is referred to as the prince of the power of the air, it's really no wonder that the satanic elite would utilize the music industry to showcase these elaborate rituals in a means of propagating their Luciferian dogmas. Whether by way of Madonna's throne, Katy Perry's game of chess, or Beyoncé's split personality, let's take a moment to re-examine the halftime shows of yesteryear to get a fuller understanding of what exactly were being shown.
First of all, it's the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl is kind of like the Holy of Holies in America, right?
At the time, Madonna may have seemed like an odd choice for the 2012 Super Bowl. But then again, Madonna is no stranger to performing occult rituals during her performances. Whether she's surrounded by demons, dancing with scantily clad nuns who are stripping on poles in the shape of a crucifix. Aside from dancing alongside depictions of Baphomet and a fallen angel, this halftime show performance also had its fill of subliminal messaging, featuring a winged sun disk, which Egyptian mystics used for ritualistic magic, a quite noticeable mark of the beast complete with ox symbolism, and a depiction of Madonna performing on a Masonic altar where she is literally inside the inner circle between two Masonic pillars on a stage in the shape of the infamous Illuminati owl representing the Roman goddess Minerva. But the real focal point of this Illuminati ritual for me was during the closing song, where Madonna took the stage with the gospel choir standing before the Illuminati all-seeing eye and openly worshipping Lucifer when she sings her famous song, Like a Prayer. So when Madonna says, which god do you think that verse is talking about? And then when she adds, where do you think she's trying to take you? Switching gears from blatant witchcraft and satanic rituals to the seemingly mundane by comparison performance in 2013 when Beyoncé took the stage at the Super Bowl halftime show. Despite flashing the Illuminati hand sign or the giant illuminated eye taking center stage during the final number, this relatively tame halftime show performance showcased one of the Illuminati's and Hollywood's darkest agendas. This soul partitioning campaign known as MKUltra was flaunted across the Super Bowl stage. Soul partitioning and MKUltra techniques utilize demon possession by breaking down an individual's psyche into many different fragmented pieces which are then more malleable and easier for a demon spirit to take possession of. And the victims of this agenda in Hollywood are easy to detect.
Roman is a crazy boy who lives in me, and he says the things that I don't want to say.
While this can be invoked many different ways, both voluntarily or drug-induced, the most common technique utilized in Hollywood is through childhood abuse and torture techniques.
You know, there's a lot of good people in this industry, but there's also a lot of really, really sick, corrupt people in this industry. And there are people in this industry who have gotten away with it for so long that they feel they're above the law. And that's got to change. That's got to stop.
This very real and very disturbing, relatively unknown agenda was depicted and showcased all throughout Beyoncé's performance. From the stage itself depicting two faces mirroring each other, to her emulating Shiva, the goddess of destruction, splitting off into multiple different personalities, illustrating the fragmentation of an individual's psyche, to the shattering window of an individual's soul. And with all the black and white symbolism prevalent throughout the performance, it isn't difficult to figure out who's responsible for these agendas. But the true hallmark came at the end of her performance, when she kneeled on the altar to sing her song Halo. What you may not realize is that Halos is the personification of the sun in Greek mythology, and is closely identified with the god Apollo, the god of light. In all actuality, Beyoncé's closing performance was not simply her singing one of her top hits, but in all actuality her giving thanks and praise and worshipping before millions of people the Luciferian god. Closing out our list is the Queen herself appearing in the 2015 halftime show, Katy Perry.
That's how I got introduced to the music industry. I swear I wanted to be like the Amy Grant of music. Yeah. But it didn't work out, and so I sold my soul to the devil.
As a high-level Illuminati witch, Katy Perry has dabbled in a little bit of everything, from openly practicing satanic rituals on stage, to music videos promoting everything from bestiality to MKUltra, to homosexuality and Illuminati ideologies. She even took her own artistic liberties with The Witch from Hansel and Gretel. So when it came time to choose a musical artist to represent the Whore of Babylon, Katy Perry was undoubtedly the obvious choice. Dressed in flames to represent a phoenix, Katy Perry took to the checkerboard stage where the pieces for the ultimate Illuminati halftime show fell into place. Capping off both ends of the performance representing the light of Lucifer, this Freemasonic ritual went right under the noses of the general public.
That's what got me with that, Katy Perry and Lady Gaga. There was another thing. I'm like, well, if you're doing this, it means you're out doing this on tour, and your audience is all young teenagers. You know, I'm like, you're showing them these images, and that these images are cool to accept and to put them in the mainstream.
Yeah, look, we talked last week about how we're being desensitized, all right? And the human mind can negotiate a little bit. Like, we are okay going a little bit over the line. Like what we call little white lies, or we'll stretch it this time, okay?
Shameless.
Okay, thank you. There's a good one.
I used to watch that a lot.
Me too. I watched, you know what's funny?
Up till season 9.
I loved Shameless.
It's a great show.
And this is one of the things that happens is God starts to change, because something happened. No one told me to not like Shameless. Excuse me. But I started finding myself disliking things that, and I believe, I can't prove this, but I believe that, you know, when I asked his spirit to come into me, it did. And these things that I used to love, I started, many of them just not liking anymore. A lot of, like, you know, we've all dealt with addictions. All of us have. Let's just be honest. One way, whether, look, I'm addicted to coffee and chewing gum too. But some of the ones that I was wrestling with just fell away without even trying. It's weird.
Same.
And so we've got some friends that have given the wheel over to God, so to speak. And if that's happened, I think God is going to do something that is going to ultimately, because this is not waking up to this stuff. It's nothing you can. It's not a 24-hour thing. This show is a year long. I mean, there's a reason we're going to end up with 45 episodes for year one, and it'll really be in those 45 episodes 500 dots, hopefully enough to see the picture.
Right. You know, when you talk about proving the case, I think we're laying out evidence.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
As far as what we're trying to convey, or the story that we're trying to put forth, we're just showing you, here it is. This is some things that we found through the times. To me, I can see the evil in man without tying it to the Bible, right? Like, by pointing out these conspiracies, I truly see it, right? I see it in the men that are doing it. That's why I asked the other night about men of faith, you know, about the astronauts, because I think when you talk about things working in the shadows or compartmentalized, now that I can totally get, because we all fall into that trap. Mm-hmm. You know, if I go to work and I make one part of a puzzle, I have no idea what that puzzle is. Right? So those that are way above me know what, you know, from the top of the design group, know what the idea is. But you never see that. There's no reason for you to know what that is, right? So if you do that in an organization, half the people that are in there, that's why I always stop short of, you know, like when we say CERN, there's plenty of janitors and people that work there that have no idea what they're involved in.
You know, every now and then, it might not be a bad idea for us to take a break from pounding this information, because I used to have to do it, take breaks for a couple months at a time, just step away. Mm-hmm. But invariably, I'm here today. I mean, I would always get pulled back, and then I finally just gave in and made it a career.
Those are going to be that's going to be kind of a barometer for us too. Because last night was really cool when we were watching the playback. You know, watching the edited version or the real episode. We're commenting through the whole thing, and we can be there with the audience. I think that's great.
Right. And this is sort of like the Saturday Night Live run through right before.
Correct.
You know, a lot of this stuff obviously will make the show, and we cut out all the parts that make us look dumb and embarrass us. So
I don't mind.
Yeah,
embarrass away.
I don't mind embarrassing Dave.
All right, let's just take a look at a couple strange things. because I don't want to ever leave here without looking at least a few. So a lot of people watch the moon. A lot of telescopes pointed at the moon because there's a lot of people on Earth, a lot of hobbyists that are astronomers. This is not a one-off video. I have seen what you're about to see from dozens of people. Like, I don't think this is made up. Something's going on, and I don't know what it is, but I'm going to show it to you guys, and then I want you guys to tell me what you think it is.
So I'm filming one night looking for objects. I pan my camera down and the wave starts, this hologram wave. I don't notice it. And then it catches up to the camera and I do notice it. I glance at the moon, but when you're staring at things, you know, you don't know whether it's your eyes or what. And then I notice a second wave coming. And at this point, I'm thinking it's my camera. I look up at the moon again and, you know, I just don't know what to think. I save the clip out, I don't delete it, I almost did, and I look at it for quite some time, weeks maybe, looking at it over and over, and I'm realizing that, you know, this is not the way a digital camera malfunctions. This is an organic line, no pixelation, no shredding of the signal. You'll notice a couple things. The wave looks like it bulges in the center, as if it's going down. If you stop the frame and measure it, you'll see that the sides are lower than the center, so there's kind of a bulge, and it's also tilted a little bit, and you can see structure and stuff under there.
In what has now become known as the 2012 lunar wave happening. In what appeared to be these mysterious waves that just by chance he captured on video moving across the moon. And it wasn't just one wave, it was two, one followed by the other. And it's very strange because as you guys are seeing, we have these very thin lines of distortion making their way up from the bottom of the moon and up to the top and then disappearing. And now, of course, there have been other theories. Some have said that this is, you know, some kind of strange electromagnetic interaction sweeping over the face of the moon. Others have said that this may be some sort of a refraction of a cold front or two layers of different atmospheric pressures. And, you know, the debate has continued.
Okay, there's a lot of stuff like that out there. This is not a one-off.
Hologram moon? Is that what he's trying to tell us?
Well,
you got a blip screen in
the
it.
little thing he was just starting to. He called it a hologram, but he's like, I don't exactly know what. What do you guys make of this?
Yeah, I would have to see it for myself. I would do more research opposed from just watching the one video.
Right. Unbelievable.
Well, I've recently learned about CubeSats they're supposed to be low Earth or low orbit satellites that the reason why I heard this because I guess Pepsi is going to be the first advertiser, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to shine in space, like it's going to do a advertisement in space. So if that's the case, and you really have technology that's far more along than we would ever imagine, and you projected the moon.
Have you guys seen
It's a lot to
our
absorb.
promotional
Yeah,
piece
it is.
where a bunch of people, and I want to say it was in China, saw
have
the
seen
floating
that.
city?
I did see that.
Photographed from many different angles?
Yes.
See, I think that's them testing holograms. This picture you guys see here, it's not in a great place to show it. This was taken in 2008 in Singapore. And I actually...
2 moons or something?
No, so you see you've got a large ship up here.
Yep.
And it's above Singapore. Wouldn't be surprised if they're going to use a lot of holograms to make us think things are going on that are really not. Maybe to fool Christians, he does put up a hologram. He advertises the blood moon tetrad. We think it's a real sign, but it's a manufactured sign by Satan. So, okay. We're up, guys. We're going to be wrapping it up here for today. We're up against the greatest deceiver in humanity. And there is a solution to him. And that solution, Tony, is...
Jesus.
Yeah, that's it, man. Get to know who he is. We're all fried without him.
Thanks,
we
everybody.
Will, see you guys
Have a
next
great
week. Sound
week.
good.
Have a great show, guys.
There's no more sin.